Hey all, here OS Reviews. You're watching our video unboxing and first impressions look at the Doogee S88 Plus. This is a rugged Android smartphone that sells for around $200, so it's fairly affordable, it's unlocked, and for the price you're getting pretty decent specs, including 8 gigs of built-in RAM, along with 128 gigs of built-in storage, a octa-core Helio P70 processor, along with a 48 megapixel rear-facing camera from Samsung that also has a wide-angle lens rated at 8 megapixels, along with a 16 megapixel front-facing camera. It is running on a pretty stock version of Android 10.0, and like other rugged Android phones, this one is going to be waterproof, IP69 rated. You can submerge it in water, as well as drop it. It's military specified and it will still survive. So quite impressive. Has a giant 10,000 milliamp hour battery, and impressively at this price, you're also getting built-in NFC as well as Qi wireless charging and even reverse charging, which means that if you put another Qi compatible phone like an iPhone onto the back of this smartphone, it can charge up the battery of the iPhone. The 88 Plus also has customizable LED lights on the rear that they are inspired quote-unquote by Iron Man. Doogee themselves have another device called the S88 Pro that was actually released earlier in 2020. This refresh in 2021 is actually called the Plus, which is a more advanced version. These days, there are definitely a handful of reasons why you might want to consider a rugged phone. For one, in this current pandemic, it is a device that you can just wash with soap and water, for example, to disinfect and clean it more easily than a regular phone, although it's going to be a chunkier design. It does have 3 different colors to pick from for the casing. There is a fire orange, army green, and a mineral black. Let's remove the wrap here, and it is also a dual SIM phone, by the way, so you can pop in 2 nano SIM cards, or you can also expand on the built-in memory with a micro SD card. And then sliding things open, we have access to a included wall charger in the box, which is pretty neat. So depending on your region, it's going to come with the corresponding adapter. There's also a lanyard strap that you get as an added accessory. There is a USB Type-C charging cable and also a Type-C to 3.5mm adapter. So unfortunately, that probably means this phone doesn't have a standard headphone jack, but it is what it is these days. You can always use Bluetooth wireless headphones if you prefer that. There's also a free screen protector that they give you, a nice little extra, and then the usual array of warranties and quick user guides. Finally, we have just the smartphone on the right hand side that is wrapped, and that is it. And almost immediately I can sense that this is a super heavy phone. It weighs almost 375 grams, so incredibly hefty, almost like a tank in the hands. Phone also comes bundled with a case, but it's outside of the main box, so it comes in its separate little compartment, and it says customized soldier armor. We actually get another extra screen protector, so in total there's 3 screen protectors that you get included. There's a wipe, and then finally the actual case itself. It's made out of this rigid plastic material, and now here's what it looks like with the case attached. So it definitely gives it still a very sturdy look, and it doesn't add too much weight to the phone. The edges here are still revealed, but again, just the corners which are adding some protection. This is indeed a beast of a phone, just because of the ultra-large battery and all the added durability and rubber accents. The frame is also constructed partially out of aluminum and metal, so it does have a very premium feel for a $200 phone. I have to say, pretty impressive there. And then we also have a loudspeaker towards the bottom, along with a lanyard strap. There's also a side-mounted fingerprint scanner, which is pretty neat placement. There's also a logo, waterproof, etched onto the metal here proudly. All the keys and controls are very tactile and have lots of ridges that makes them easy to feel. Essentially, it's like a phone that has a durable case permanently attached to it. And then on the other side, we do have the micro SD card / SIM card slots, along with some remappable controls over here that can be changed to open certain programs, like tapping once or twice to do things like open the flashlight. Other controls depending on how you set it up, which is pretty neat. Shockproof is also labeled there, and then on the very bottom, and that gives us access to the USB Type-C, and you can close it again for added resistance if you're submerging it into water or ice for longer periods of time, for example. Notably, here is the Conquest S16 Pro that we checked out earlier in the year. The S16 Pro is still a slightly more expensive premium flagship phone, since this one has a faster Helio P90 processor. And then more recently, we also checked out the Umidigi Bison, which is another affordable rugged Android phone. Bison doesn't have as high military resistance and durability to it, but again, it has a 48 megapixel sensor, also has a slightly weaker processor than the Helio P70 used in the Doogee. Now on the front, we can see that there is a screen protector already pre-applied, so although you get one in the box, there is one out of the factory that is perfectly aligned, which I am glad to see. We can just immediately peel this off, and the screen here is protected also using Corning Gorilla Glass. And again, it is a full HD 1080p plus resolution that is measuring 19 by 9, and we do have a teardrop notch on the very top for the front-facing 16 megapixel selfie cam along with the earpiece. And overall, of course, bezel sizes are not going to be invisible as with most rugged phones, just because they need to protect the screen from shattering, so there's a lot of bumpers going on the sides, but overall it still is a pretty immersive, modern enough looking screen. Now let's set up the fingerprint scanner here on the side. The placement feels decent in terms of not being too low or too high, still is easy enough to reach if you're holding it with your right hand. There's going to be some software updates that you can accept, and voila, we are done. So overall, the setup process is relatively quick. Again, the phone does feel pretty snappy here on first impressions. We do have all of the Google Essentials pre-installed, such as Gmail, Drive, Photos, YouTube, access to the Play Store. Everything is fully installed here, again with gestures working without any problems, pretty stock, and a handful of other special features including a sound recorder, FM radio, there is a gaming mode, and there's also what's called a toolbox, like other rugged phones, that consolidates some other features here like a compass, a barometer, a magnifier, height measure, which uses the camera to approximate, and sound meter, which uses the microphone to tell you how loud your surroundings are. So a few extra durable functions that you can find baked in under this tool belt app. And indeed, we have 8 gigs of built-in RAM. Some customization to the icons are going on. They have a green accent, different from stock Android, but still is relatively clean, I'd say. And there are a handful of custom wallpapers built on in that all have a pretty professional look that goes with a red and black accent that makes it look quite sleek. And a few other ones that you can see shows off the overall kind of vibrancy of the screen quite well. Not, of course, the same extent as a AMOLED or OLED display, but for an IPS, it truly is quite good, I'd say, as far as initial impressions here are concerned. And on the left, we do have a Google Now shade that will populate with news feeds after you start using the phone. Just as initial impressions, again, it seems to be working all right in terms of switching to the widescreen and then going back to the main camera. We've got a few special modes, including a night mode. There is a pro mode that you can use to change properties like ISO and white balance. There's also a QR code scanner built into the app, which is pretty neat. Interestingly though, one thing I'm not seeing here in the camera app would be something like an AI mode. That is one of the more fancy things that a lot of the other phones are trying to bring out these days, so that is a decision that they decided not to put in, at least directly. Finally, a peek into the settings. We can check out some other properties like the breathing light switch, customizing the button on the side to open up different applications, various gestures that you can do like 3 fingers for a screenshot, giving us a pretty decently up-to-date version that is at least going to work just fine in terms of downloading any applications that you need from the store. So if we turn the phone back on and put our finger here on the side, you can see it unlocks relatively quickly. Also, if the screen is turned off, the same thing can be said, so not too bad. So again, we're going to do a bit more testing, of course, with this phone and come out with a more complete and detailed review after using it for a while, so be sure to stay tuned if you're interested in that. This has been just our first impressions and unboxing look at the Doogee S88 Plus. Again, a competitive, rugged smartphone for folks that may not need the slimmest or sleekest design, but want something that has a lot more utility, resistance to wear and tear, and a ultra big battery for a reasonable price.